In this video, I'll show you another example of how to use view layers and render passes to gain greater control over your scene in post-production. These ideas have already been covered in previous videos. So, if you are completely new to this topic, please take a look at them. The links are included in the description. In most cases, we render a scene as a single image. But in some cases, we may need to change a single light component, such as shadows or reflections. And we could also need to change a single object. We can export the various light and object components using the render passes. We can also use the view layers to separate different 3D objects. This video is based on another tutorial, in which we demonstrated how to track an object's motion. The link is in the description. I'd like to demonstrate how I created this simple simulation and exported the various components. As previously stated, I modeled and placed this object at the marker locations. As a result, the 3D object moves in the same way as in the real video. The container is made up of two different objects, the ring and its bottom face. This is due to the fact that I only want to render the ring. The base is only for receiving shadows. Now I'll add the simulation of these balls. Add the rigid body property to the cylinder in the physics properties. Set the mode to passive. The object must in fact function as a collider. You should also check the animated property. This is due to the fact that the object must be animated, and not only be controlled by the rigid body system. Repeat for the cylinder's base. The spheres must now be added to the simulation. Select them, and then add the rigid body property again, but this time set it to active. When you start the simulation, the container moves the balls and they collide with it. I want to hide the cylinder's base in the final rendering. However, it must still catch the shadows. We could simply check the shadow catcher property to accomplish this. It will not be rendered in this manner, and we will only have the shadows. However, I'd like to render the objects separately so that I can adjust them in post-production. This is possible with view layers and render passes. So, for each object or group of objects we want to export, let's make a new collection. I made collections for the ring, the balls, and the shadows. Then I'll make a new layer for each object we want to export. We must specify what must be visible in each layer. I set the ring and spheres in the shadows view layer to indirect only. They are not visible in this manner, but they do contribute to shadows and reflections. In the Object Properties pane, I also selected Shadow Catcher for the ring's base. The ring layer received the same treatment, with the shadows and spheres collections set to indirect only. I also set the ring collection to hold out in the spheres layer. The ring serves as a mask for the balls in this manner. This is what we have done in terms of object separation. But I also want to export some light components. For example, I'd like to export the ring's shadow and ambient occlusion. Select the ring view layer, and check the related passes in the View Layers Properties section. We must now export each component. Remember to enable the transparent film option in the render properties. Navigate to the Compositing tab. We need to add the layers we want here. We can also choose whether to export the entire image, or just a single pass for each layer. For example, I'm going to export the entire image for the spheres layer. However, I can export the shadows and ambient occlusion for the ring layer. Simply add an output node to export the image. I recommend using the OpenXR format. You can now open the image sequences in any video compositing software and stack the images in the correct order. We can color correct and adjust each object and light component separately, because they are in separate layers. This is the reason why it is often useful to export objects and light components in different image sequences.